Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that. If you're returning, how you doing? What we're going to be talking about today is flour. No, not the ones that you pick out in your garden, but the kind that we used to bake with. If you're like me and you grew up with only one type of flour in the pantry to use for all the baking and all the basic necessities in the kitchen, right? We all grew up with one type of flour in the pantry, right? Per use in the baking aisle at the grocery store can be mind-boggling at times. You've got white whole wheat flour, white flour, bread flour, whole grain flour, cake flour, pastry flour, all of which act differently. While most of it's this like felt self-explanatory, use bread flour to make bread, what threw me for a loop was the bleached and unbleached flour. What is bleached flour? Is it the same bleach that I use on my tomato stained kitchen towels? No, it's not. Does it make a difference in my baking? Is one better than the other? If you've ever asked these sim questions, there are answers. Okay, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we all stockpile on flour, and there's a reason for that, and that reason is, if there's ever a time where we have to get back to basics in the kitchen, flour is one of those ingredients that we're all going to need in order to make bread, make pasta, make cakes, whatever the case may be. Okay, so I feel that this is a very important discussion that we have. Okay, so what are the answers? Well, freshly milled flour. Okay, a lot of us have the hand crank mills. Okay, we buy it so we can make our own flour, right? It's just like pressed grape juice, usable, maybe even good, but much better after a bit of aging. Straight from the milling machine, flour is unpredictable. It absorbs water unevenly, and the gluten-forming proteins, they're weak. Give it time though, and like wine, it changes, becoming much more reliable to bake with. As it sits, oxygen from the air changes the chemical structure of the flour. It strengthens the protein and slowly bleaches it to a light and then a pale color. Now this flour that's naturally whitened by airing it out is what companies label as unbleached flour. Okay? Now, the aging process can take anywhere from a few weeks to a few months and comes with its own logistical hurdles. Imagine having to find space for hundreds of thousands of pounds of flour to hang out all day long, monitoring the temperature to make sure it doesn't get moldy and swatting away pesky pests that think it's their personal buffet. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of money. Which explains why, when chemical aging was invented, companies, they latched onto this idea. What once took weeks now take hours, with none of the other associated problems of space, storage. Plus, unlike manual aging, both the process and the end result were reliable and consistent, which are magic words for the flour maker and the final baker. Okay, that chemically aged flour is solid as bleached flour. Now, most importantly, how does this affect our baking, our cooking? All right, now bleached flour is whiter than unbleached flour, and it's also more acidic. The bleaching process uses bleaching agents like benzoyl peroxide or chlorine dioxide, a chlorine gas that's also used to treat tap water, to break down the starches and the proteins in that flour making it softer, more absorbent, and baked goods made with bleached flour can take on more fat, more sugar, making the final result extra tender and rich with a softer texture. Now, here is where there is more evident than like cake making. In fact, okay, take box cake for example, the mix, all right? This was where this stuff came into existence after the invention of bleached flour. It's so essential in the process to its success, if you will. Cakes made with bleached cake flour and bleached all-purpose to a lesser extent are fluffier, they're taller, with a more even structure. The same cake made with its unbleached alternative is coarse, faintly crumbly, like cornbread, and noticeably sweeter because of the lack of acid. Now, let's talk about substituting and swapping out, okay? The bane of every recipe developer's existence. If the cookbook that you are baking from or you are cooking from, okay, or you're getting back to basics with, was published anywhere between like the 1940s and the 2010s, it's safe to assume that the flour in that recipe, whether it's cake or all-purpose, is the bleached flour, okay? Now, here are my actual rules that I go by when I'm getting back to basics in the kitchen for smart swapping when it comes to flour, okay? Cakes. Well, okay, let's say we're doing cakes, okay? For light, delicate cakes like yellow cake, angel food cake, chiffon cake, use bleached flour, especially when the recipe calls for cake flour, all right? For sturdier cakes like carrot cake, pumpkin loaves, quick bread, muffins, they can tolerate a denser texture. Use either bleached or unbleached. Now, for cookies, pie crusts, pastries, breads, you can swap freely between bleached and unbleached flour depending on what you have on hand for treats like pies, cookies, eclairs, cream puffs, puff pastry, yeast breads, all right? And the end result will vary. Cookies made with unbleached flour will spread more, for instance, but not enough to ruin a batch. If you catch my drift, like your batter, your cookie batter will be a little bit more runny, but they'll still make amazing cookies, okay? All right, guys, I hope this was helpful. I want to try and do more videos like this of getting back to basics in the kitchen, because with the times that we're living in right now, I think that it is wise of us to get back to basics in the kitchen and learn and grow with each other. If there are any like pantry tips and tricks or getting back to basic tips and tricks that you want me to share with the community, just email me with your tips and tricks, okay? And we'll do a video on them, okay? All right, guys, I'm out of here. I will see you in the next one. You stay safe, you stay positive, you keep prepping, and as always, fearless. Ciao.